Welcome to the Marketing Science Lab podcast, where we bridge the gap between complex academic research and real-world marketing applications. I'm Alex. Sophie, I'm pretty excited about today's episode. Remember how we reach out to the lead author of the papers we feature in case they wish to review the episode notes before it goes live and to see if they could give us a personal quote?
Oh yes, but we haven't been very successful in getting responses. These researchers are very busy people. I'm sure our messages get lost in their inboxes.
Well, for today's episode, we got extremely lucky. We actually got a quote from Dr. Chu Yan Pai and even shared his beautiful story about what inspired him to work on this.
Oh, that is very exciting. Thank you so much, Dr. Pai, for your time. Okay, let's get into the topic. Did you know that during the holiday season, food waste in the United States increases by a staggering 25%? That's right, as we approach a time of plenty and celebration, we're also facing a significant challenge: increased food waste.
Wow, that's a shocking statistic, Sophie. It really puts our topic today into perspective. We're exploring an innovative solution that could help address this issue using storytelling to change consumer perceptions of ugly or unattractive produce.
Exactly, Alex. Our featured research today is titled "I Know I Am Ugly, but Please Listen to My Story First," an examination of how storytelling can impact consumers' valuation of unattractive produce by Chu Yan Pai and colleagues, published this year.
Before we dive deeper, let's set the stage. Sophie, can you give us some more context on the food waste problem, especially during the holiday season?
Absolutely. According to the United Nations, around 30% of global food is lost or wasted at farms, retail stores, or households. During the holidays, this issue becomes even more pronounced. Think about all those slightly bruised apples or oddly shaped potatoes that might get passed over for the picture-perfect produce in our holiday meals.
It's ironic, isn't it? At a time when we're celebrating abundance, we're also contributing to significant waste. And what's particularly interesting is that a significant portion of this waste comes from perfectly edible produce that's rejected simply because it doesn't look pretty enough.
Exactly. Consumers have become accustomed to seeing only aesthetically pleasing fruits and vegetables in stores, leading to cognitive biases against ugly produce. But here's where it gets interesting. The research we're discussing today suggests that storytelling could be a powerful tool to change these perceptions.
That's fascinating. Let's break down this research. What were the key findings?
The researchers conducted 2 experimental studies to examine how storytelling can impact consumers' perceptions and behaviors towards unattractive produce. They found that combining storytelling with marketing tactics, such as coupons, significantly increased consumers' willingness to purchase and consume unattractive produce.
Can you give us a real-world example of how this storytelling approach might work in practice?
Sure. Imagine you're at a grocery store during the holiday season and you see a bin of misshapen apples. Instead of just a price tag, there's a small sign that tells the story of the apple orchard. It might read something like, "These unique apples are the result of an unusually warm fall at the Johnson family orchard. While they may look different, their flavor is just as sweet and crisp as their picture-perfect cousin. By choosing these apples, you're supporting local farmers and reducing food waste this holiday season."
I love that example, Sophie. It's not just about appearance anymore. It's about the bigger picture, supporting local farmers, reducing waste, and still getting a delicious product. I can see how that story might make me more inclined to give those apples a chance.
Exactly. The research showed that storytelling can enhance consumers' perceived taste of unattractive produce, which in turn increases their likelihood of purchasing it. It's about changing the narrative around these foods.
This seems like a win-win situation. Consumers get perfectly good produce, often at a discount, and we reduce food waste. But I'm curious, how significant could the impact be if retailers widely adopted this approach?
That's an excellent question, Alex. While the study didn't provide specific numbers on potential waste reduction, consider this: if even a small percentage of the 25% increase in holiday food waste could be prevented through these storytelling techniques, it could mean tons of food saved from landfills.
That's truly impactful. Now, let's talk about how retailers could implement this strategy during the holiday season. Any ideas?
Absolutely. The holiday season is perfect for this approach. Retailers could create themed storytelling campaigns. For example, they could have a 12 Days of Ugly Produce promotion, where each day features a different unattractive fruit or vegetable with its unique story.
I love that idea. They could tie it into holiday recipes too. Maybe day one is Rudolph's red-nosed tomatoes for holiday salsa, or Frosty's misshapen potatoes for the perfect mashed potatoes.
Exactly. And remember, the research also found that combining storytelling with other marketing tactics, like coupons, was particularly effective. So retailers could offer a buy two, get one free deal on these featured items.
This research really highlights the power of narrative in marketing. It's not just about selling a product, it's about selling an idea, a story, and in this case, a more sustainable approach to food consumption.
Absolutely, and it's particularly relevant as we approach the holiday season. It's a time when many people are thinking about giving back and being more conscious of their impact on the world. Choosing to purchase and use unattractive produce could be a small but meaningful way for consumers to contribute to reducing food waste.
So, what are the key takeaways for marketers and retailers from this research?
I'd say there are three main points. Don't underestimate the power of storytelling in changing consumer perceptions, especially when it comes to products that might be initially unappealing. Combine storytelling with practical incentives like discounts or coupons for maximum effect. Consider the context, in this case, the holiday season, and how it might make consumers more receptive to certain messages or stories.
Those are great points, Sophie. I think this research also highlights the importance of creativity in marketing. It's not always about having the most perfect looking product. Sometimes it's about finding the beauty in imperfection and communicating that effectively to consumers.
Absolutely, Alex. And on that note, we have a challenge for our listeners.
Oh, I love a good challenge. What do you have in mind?
This holiday season, we challenge our listeners to seek out and purchase at least one piece of ugly produce each week. Share your experience and creative uses for these items on social media using Ugly Produce Beautiful Story.
That's a fantastic idea. It's a great way for our listeners to put this research into practice and potentially make a real impact on reducing food waste. And who knows, you might discover that those oddly shaped carrots make the best holiday side dish you've ever had.
Exactly. And we'd love to hear about your experiences in our next episode. Did the story behind the produce make you more likely to buy it? Did it taste as good as its prettier counterparts?
Before we wrap up, let's remind our listeners where they can find more information about the Marketing Science Lab and this fascinating research.
You can visit our website at marketingsciencelab.org, where we'll have links to the full research paper and additional resources on reducing food waste. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Audible Podcast, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform.
We really are everywhere, ha! Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Marketing Science Lab podcast. Before we leave, I would like to share Dr. Pai's inspiring story. He shared that the inspiration for this project goes back to his childhood in Taiwan. His mom would take him on what she called a treasure hunt at the wet market, where they'd search for odd-shaped or ugly fruits and vegetables. She valued these less perfect items, finding them more affordable and often safer with fewer pesticides.
That's such a beautiful memory. It really shows how our early experiences can shape our perspectives and even our research interests.
Absolutely. Dr. Pai mentioned that those experiences made a lasting impression on him. He finds it a pity to see today's supermarkets showcasing only picture-perfect produce, with much of the imperfect produce discarded before it reaches the shelves.
It's interesting how he connected his personal experience to his work as a professor. He mentioned using storytelling to engage his students and structuring his lectures like stories to keep them connected and invested.
Yes, and that's what led him and his co-authors to explore storytelling as a way to enhance consumer acceptance of ugly produce. Their experiments showed that storytelling proved to be a highly effective tool in encouraging people to embrace ugly produce.
That's fantastic. Did Dr. Pai share any personal message for our listeners, especially considering the upcoming holiday season?
He did, and it's really touching. Dr. Pai emphasized that during the holiday season, we focus on gratitude and togetherness, and he believes that spirit can extend to our food choices too. He said, embracing imperfect produce is a beautiful way to appreciate the earth's offerings. Each fruit or vegetable, regardless of its aesthetic appearance, has its own beauty and role to play, just like each of us around the holiday table.
That's a powerful message. It really ties into what we've been discussing about changing perceptions and reducing waste.
Absolutely, Dr. Pai also added, by including these in our meals, we're not only reducing waste, but also showing appreciation for the resources and effort that went into growing them. It's a reminder that we don't need perfect appearances to make a perfect holiday meal.
I love that. It's a beautiful way to look at our food choices and their impact.
Indeed, Dr. Pai concluded by saying it's time to bring back the tradition of thinking and valuing each of nature's unique offerings. I think that's a perfect note to end our episode on. You can read his full response in the episode show notes.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Marketing Science Lab podcast. Remember, every piece of produce has a story. Sometimes we just need to listen. This holiday season, let's challenge ourselves to look beyond appearances and embrace the beauty in imperfection.